Welcome ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to take a look at the Halls of Fabrication guide for the veteran mode. I will first go through all the 4 bosses and I will try to explain all the tactics that we currently use and what kind of damage you have to look out for, etc. And at the end of the video I also want to quickly explain what kind of support sets you should maybe run if you're new to the trial and what you should look out for. I am also working on a written guide on my website. I will put the link into the description so you can go check it out if you want to. So let's get started. The first boss can be quite difficult till you know all the mechanics. So the most important mechanic is that you do not connect the bosses together. When they are too close together, they will have a connection to each other, and the longer they are connected, the stronger they will be. So they will do more damage and eventually just one-shot almost everyone, even the tanks. So with our tactic, this cannot happen. We just split the bosses as far as possible. As you can see, we have 6 people on one boss and the other 6 on the other boss, almost as far away as possible. This also prevents basically the next mechanic, which are those ball sparkles. What they do is, if they hit somebody, they stun you. You can block this if you want. However, with our mechanic, those ball sparkles disappear before they even hit somebody. Only the tank has to be careful not to get hit by all of them, but your tank is blocking most of the times anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. So if you're that far away like we here, the sparkles will not reach the other group, so you don't have to worry about them because they disappear. They always target the furthest player away. That's why they always will go to the other side. There is also shulk ads that spawn from time to time. It's, I think, when both bosses drop to 75 or one boss drops to 50%, and then every 25% those ads spawn. You want to be very careful. It's best if the tank taunts them because they deal a lot of damage. If there is like 3 to 4 ads on a damage dealer or a healer, they almost get insta killed because they deal a lot of damage, especially if you have pressure from something else like the spheres or like shock on the ground, all kind of stuff. So you want to kill them as soon as possible. You can save your Destra ulti for those and then just pop the ulti and they will get AoE down. Tank has to look out for a few additional things. There is those shock fields that are on the ground. Nobody can stand in there. They deal an insane amount of damage. If you stand in there for like 1-2 seconds, you're dead. They are stationary, so they're very easy to avoid. Then there is also a bleed and a heal debuff on the tank that gets applied from time to time. This is a very strong debuff and you can purge it or just heal through it. There is also a headbang that the boss does, which will stun the tank. However, if you block, then this shouldn't be a problem. It's only when you don't block, he will knock on the ground, but somebody else can interrupt the boss then. If he doesn't get interrupted, he will kill the tank. You might wonder, why don't we kill the spheres? This tactic here, it's safer because you don't need to move around with the bosses, so you will always have healing on the ground and that kind of stuff. What you need is at least 3 people on each side with purges. Tank, healer and the damage dealer. Or just everyone with purges. What this does is the spheres will put the poison dot on you from time to time, actually quite often, because there's a lot of spheres alive. So you need to constantly purge. You can purge those away and then it's easy peasy. If you don't purge fast enough, you will die. Next thing is there is also snipe. So on each side you should have 1 or 2 damage dealers with crushing shock. Tank could technically also use it, but I think it's safer if 2 damage dealers use it. They will interrupt the spheres. The spheres will start charging snipe. It will glow like yellow reddish and it will start targeting a player. If you use crushing shock, they will get interrupted, so you don't have to worry about it. On the player itself, like if you miss a snipe, you will see a red yellowish glow on yourself and you know, okay, I need to dodge roll. You can dodge roll that too. You also could block it or shield it, but if you only have your 18k health without the shield, or you don't dodge roll or you don't block, you're going to die because it deals about 20k damage. So yeah, the spheres are your biggest enemy. Once you manage to do that, make sure to kill the bosses on about the same time, because if the moment one boss dies, the other one will enrage and the spheres will also enrage. At this point, I recommend that one player or a healer really just spams purge, 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 purge. Because you also have to know purge has a cap of 6 targets, so you might need to use it twice in a row to really cleanse all players once you're stick together. As long as you're spread, it doesn't matter because there's only 6 and 6 people. The second boss, you have 2 fighting areas, the one where we are at the moment, and then from time to time 4 people have to go up on the platforms like south, north, west and east. Preferably people with a shield, because you have to go kill the spheres up there. Boss will raise his stuff and you kinda hear the sound and you know you have to go up. He will also get the shield, so while people are up you can't really damage the boss, so just focus the ads that spawn. Now the spheres basically have a shield, and one of the players upstairs will get a beam. When you take the beam to the sphere, the shield will break and then you can kill the sphere pretty fast. And you just repeat that 4 times. Once all spheres are dead, everybody goes back to his original position and then somebody counts down 3, 2, 1, push. Everybody pushes the button and it will reset. I think you have like 1 minute. If you fail to do this in a certain amount of time, everybody will die. The boss itself, till 30%, not that difficult, so what do you need to look out for? The boss does a heavy attack about every 15 seconds on the tank. He is kind of wielding his stuff around and then hitting him on the ground, and there will be again those ball sparkles. If you don't block them, you will get stunned. They also deal a small amount of damage. Then there is this bolt escape streak liquid lightning thingy, so the boss streaks to somebody. Once he's streaked, he will place a huge lightning field on the ground. It is fairly easy to spot. Do not stand in there. If you stand in there for longer than 2 seconds, you will be dead. It's usually targeting a random person, but then again, it's really huge. It's impossible to miss. There will also be a knockback every like 25 to 30 seconds. Similar to the Molakina from White Gold Tower. If you block it, you're fine. If you don't block it, you will get knocked back fairly far. It deals a small amount of damage. Then the boss also does a Magicka drain every 20 to 40 seconds. Basically, he will start charging his heavy attack, I think to 4 targets. And when he is finished, the last tick stuns everyone. But you can interrupt this mechanic. Tank or a melee damage dealer can just bash and you will be fine. From like 77 to 75% boss's health, you will have shades. So the boss kind of will split up in 4 shades and the tank is in the middle. The tank has to stand in the middle. If he moves out, he will die. And now, this is very important and probably the most difficult mechanic for the tank. You need to block the shades. You have like a second to react. He will the shades will transform back to the boss and then he will do this push, this air push mechanic. If the tank blocks it, nothing will happen. If the tank fails to block it, everybody in the area where like it's a conal airstrike something will be instantly killed. So this is very important. We usually say stack on the south, so the tank can prioritize this area. From 60%, you have conduits spawning. We usually recommend having 2 to 3 people on the conduit. They die fairly fast, but you really need to look out for it. The boss will kind of raise his stuff into the air and shoot the conduit, so it's fairly easy to spot once you know the animation. Now, if the conduits are not being killed, they will start draining the players. From like, you can go from 100 to 0 Magicka in like a few seconds, so you really want to prioritize the conduits. They also stun, but I do think you can bash it and it will interrupt it, but I'm not 100% sure. Now the most difficult mechanic, there is also a spinner, or like, well, from 100% to like 0 you have this Centurion spawning from time to time. You can have the second tank tanking this. Just tanking next to the boss, it will die in AoE, and he will do this breath mechanic. Now, this adds a heal debuff on people that stand in the area. Heal debuff, I think, stacks up to 10 times. When you have the highest amount of heal debuff, you will receive 0 healing. If you only get like 2 free hits, maybe it's like 20% each. If you get like 2 free hits, you will have like 60 to 50% heal debuff. So I just recommend going range. Once he's done with this mechanic, just go back in and AoE him down. We used to save our ultimates for this phase, so the Centurion dies really fast. Now from 30%, there is a second Centurion. It's not the same one, it's a spinner. Now this spinner Centurion, he basically charges his arms. You see it like glowing with shock, Like there's shock around his arms all the time and he just keeps spinning. You want to have a damage dealer taunt this at and just run in a huge circle around with this, because it will kill himself. The longer he spins, the more health he will lose, and once he reaches like 20 to 0%, he will just despawn again. So it's very important that you differentiate those two ads. The normal Centurion with the breath debuff, and then the spinner with the shock arms that will spin. Per boss can only be damaged while he is stunned. So basically, when the boss gets close to a terminal, you need to activate the terminal, a shock line will appear. He walks into that, gets stunned, drops his shield, and that's the moment where you want to drop most of your ultimates, because you can only damage him through this phase. Now when he gets back up, two ads will spawn a little bit further ahead, and the tanks need to tank them. We usually bring them to the next position where the boss will get stunned. Take them a little further away. Two people or one dude uses an ultimate, either a Destro ulti or a shooting star, to kill them a little bit faster. Everybody else just drops the AoEs on them, so they die more or less before the boss comes again. So you can focus on the boss, and that's basically already it. Just repeat. At some point, like, the boss will always get faster. The more terminals you activate, the faster the boss will get to the next terminal. At some point you will not manage to kill the ads. So make sure to have them a little bit further away, because if the ads are close to the boss, while the boss has a shield, the ads will get also a shield, like 500k, and they will be hard to kill. If you have them far enough away, when the boss gets stunned, they will not get the shield. You can bring the ads into the boss, and everybody else can drop their ultimates on the boss together with the ads, and they will all die. It's very important that you kill the ads before the boss stands up again. The boss stands up, the ads is still alive, the ad will get the shield, and you will most likely not be able to kill it till the next stun phase. Most dangerous ad is the two-hander. He has a reflective shield, like when there's fireballs around him, you can't damage him with projectiles. Also, he has a fire breath. Make sure that the damage dealers do not stand in front of that. Our group always stacks on the fast spinning blade, so the tanks know don't position the two-handers there, like make them face the other direction. We prefer to stack ourselves on the fast spinning blade because we get less damage. Yes, we get damage, but it's easy over healable. People have shields, make sure to stack together, look where healing springs are placed and all that kind of stuff. I also recommend killing the spheres that are spread around the room first, especially if you're a new group. You don't know how long it will take you. When you get pretty far and then all of a sudden there is spheres, they might kill you. So I really recommend that you focus and kill the spheres first and then start the boss fight. The fourth boss is probably the most difficult one in this trial. Now, very important, you need to split up the bosses. Like from 100 to 90% they don't get connected, but afterwards there will be a connection between the bosses if they're too close together, and that's when they will deal an insane amount of damage, similar to the first boss if the two mobs, like the bosses, are too close together. So you want to make sure to find good positions, like we here, just a little bit spread out. We have 6 people on the left and 6 on the right, both focusing like on their boss with the two-hander. Now from time to time the boss in the middle will spawn bombers. There's two things you can do. Either you just shield up and the bombers will blow up in your face but you will not die, or like we do, the moment the bombers spawn, we focus the reclaimer, drop all the AoE on him, and then we kill the bombers. We always have like 2 death ultis ready, so when the bombers come close, we drop the ultis there and they will die fairly fast. Once that is done, we go back to the two-handers. The next important thing is there's stun phases, so at 69, 39 and 19%, bosses will get immune. And what you need to do is, so we drop them to like 72, all of them, like 72, 74, and then we bring them to the middle. Once they're in the middle, when they reach 69%, they will all get stunned. We bring them apart again. Because when they reach 69 and you do not connect them, they will be like, you can't damage them anymore. To prevent bombers from spawning when you bring the bosses to the middle is we wait for a bomber phase. Once the last bomber is dead, we bring the bosses immediately in, so you're ensured you will get no bombers in the middle while you stack the bosses. The reactor from time to time will spawn those fingers in the ground and you will get sucked into them. So make sure to be careful about those where they are. We usually have the tank call it out, okay, fingers spawn. It's when the reactor smashes his sword into the ground. It's easy spottable. The reducer, on the other hand, he has a fire AoE. Now this fire AoE has like 3 fireballs and they're really easy avoidable. If you stand directly behind the boss, they will not hit you. They can bounce off from the walls though. When the bosses are connected, those things will deal an insane amount of damage. They will basically one-shot you. This is especially important for this fire AoE from the reducer. Now what can you do? You can purge that dot. I usually, like when I see that the reducer does this ability, I just shout like 5-6 times purge, 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 purge. So everybody knows it has purge slotted. Usually the healers, they need to spam it like 3-4 times. So nobody has the fire dot on them anymore. The Reclaimer, the boss in the middle, places those small ground-based AoE dots on a player. So it goes on him and then after a while it starts growing and it explodes in small pieces. And you can block this, then nothing will happen. If you do not block this and you get hit, you will get stunned and it will drain your magicka if you don't immediately break free. The most difficult mechanic for the tanks here is the shock or fire bubbles. From time to time, both two-handers will have bubbles coming out from their like back or head or wherever. The tanks take all the hits, they will die. So let's just take the reactor. You have the tank number 1 there. The boss will start shoot bubbles on him. If he takes all the 10 hits, you will get one shot. Now what you have to do to avoid this, basically after 3-4 ticks, you have to swap the bosses with the other tank. What we use is shield charge, so the bosses don't move that much. So you target the other boss, shield charge, easy peasy, the bosses will not move at all. Because if you run over there and you melee taunt him and then run back, both bosses will most likely get connected. What happens when they get connected? They will get the beam and most likely deal an insane amount of damage and one-shot the tanks, or maybe the reactor or the reducer do like their AoE thingies and it will also one-shot the DDs. So both tanks have to communicate to each other and I usually recommend having another person that calls out the bombers and announces the boss's health. So let's say you're at 39% the next stun phase and you're like, okay, reactor reaches 42% stop damage on reactor, reducer reaches 42% stop damage on reducer, then the bomber spawn, okay, focus on bombers. Once the bombers are dead, bring in the bosses so the tanks know what's going on. The moment a boss reaches 24.999% execute phase, the burn phase begins. What does that mean? Basically, from the outside, bombers will start spawning. They will not move, but the area will get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So the longer you wait, or like the longer the bosses are alive, the more bombers you will get closer to the middle. And at some point, you basically have almost no free position to move around. Now with the bombers, very important, you can block the explosion. You will only get knocked down. If you don't block, you get knocked back and you most likely die. The execute phase, or like the stun phase, is probably the most difficult one. So what we usually do is we drop all the bosses to like 27%. Then we drop them to like 22, 24. Kill another wave of bombers and then we bring all the bosses together till they get stunned at 19%. Now very important, stop damage once they get stunned. As long as the bosses do not drop below 15%, they will not connect to each other. So both tanks take the bosses, like the two-handers, away to a safe spot, a little bit outside. If they are not below 15%, they will not get connected, so the whole group can focus then on the Reclaimer. Keep your ultimates for when the bombers spawn from the Reclaimer that walk to him and then will run to you. So you want to drop all your death ultis and whatsoever on the bombers. Once the Reclaimer is dead, the bombers that move to the Reclaimer are going to despawn, and you will have only the stationary bombers left that spawn slowly from the outside to the inside. Once the Reclaimer is dead, bring in the reactor, kill him, bring in the reducer, and you're good to go. Another thing I almost forgot to mention, when the tanks in the execute phase are outside, make sure to have a healer. Either go with them or just like heal from the middle with healing springs or breath of life, because the tanks will need a lot of healing out there. The last boss is also pretty difficult, but once you figured out the mechanics, it's actually okay, and you learn how to block and all that kind of stuff. So what we do is, to begin the fight with, the tank has to be downstairs, the melees stand close to him, more-ish on the left side if there's not too many, and we have also a healer there with the mending set to overall reduce the damage from the boss. Now, there is very important, the left foot, every time he stomps the left foot of the boss, you will get knocked back. To prevent the knockback, you need to block. If you don't block, you will get knocked back. There is also meteors coming down from the air, so mostly people die when they don't block the knockback, and then meteor at the same time and you die. Other than that, there is not really a lot you can die to. If you drop low on stamina, maybe go back and recharge it. The knockback is only till a certain level, so when you're far enough away, you don't get knocked back. At 90% ads will start spawning, and at 85% the boss will move into the middle to repair his arms. So what we do with the ads, we stack them right on the sphere. We have to kill at least 2 spheres, 3 would be better. So you need to stand in the middle because there is poisons. If you stand a little too far outside, you will most likely die in a few seconds. So we save all our ultis for all the ads. The tanks will take time to learn how to stack them correctly. Once that's done, drop all the ultis and they will die. There is also another tactic where you just separately kill the ads. That also works. It's probably the safer one, but I really recommend getting used to this setup. Just drop a Nova, drop a Destrol, like a lot of Destrol ultis, and then those ads die in no time. In the back, you can't see it here, but people usually line up. The fingers most of the times go through the group, but once they hit somebody, they will stop, right? So you don't want to stand behind somebody else, otherwise you will die from the fingers. So you should make a straight line. Just make sure that like the blockade of fire still hits the boss. If you're too far away, it will not hit him. So that's very important. You also need on the left and right side, we usually have on the left side a tank, because he has a left and right arm. The right arm is the blade, the spinning blades. If nobody's upstairs, the blades will be in the group down there, and it will basically insta-kill everyone. Left arm, firearm. If nobody's on the like right side, then same thing. The boss's left arm will grill the group. As long as there is people up there, this will not happen. You're safe downstairs. So there is Megamans that spawn, right? Like when we reach 90%, a two-hander and a Mega Man will spawn, and then at 87, a two-hander and a Mega Man will spawn. So other guilds, they bring them together, they kill the ads separately, and then they drop the boss. But like you see we did here, we just nuked them down, also works. Maybe needs a little bit more practice, but it definitely works. But you need to be careful of the two-hander is not that big of a deal, because he only has the fire breath, so people need to avoid that. But the Mega Man, he has again the same mechanic as the Reclaimer, those stun bubbles on the ground, like where it starts growing on a player and then explodes in small pieces, and this stuns players. If they don't immediately break free, it drains their magicka. So you really want to make sure to look at the Mega Man. When he kind of raises his hand in the air, you know, okay, you need to block. So somebody maybe call it out. There is one additional type of ad, so every time somebody dies, more or less an ad will spawn, and it will kind of copy paste the character that died. So if a Stem Sork dies, it will copy a Stem Sork with the exact same setup, like dual wield and bow bar or something like that. And the most dangerous of they're called facsimilities or something like that. The Sorks are the most dangerous one because they can drop mines. And if you don't shield up and you walk into the mine, you're getting one shot. So you really need to be careful. I usually recommend focusing the Sorks down because they can really hurt. The boss goes to the middle at 85, 65 and 45% to repair his arms. And at 25% the execute starts. So basically what you need to look out for while he's in the middle is there will be blades and they deal quite a lot of damage, so I recommend always shielding up. And you need to stand in the middle line because outside there is poison. If you stand in the poison you almost get one shot. You need to kill the spheres, at least 2. I recommend killing 3. So we usually kill the first sphere and then we split up in 2 groups, so a left and the right group. That's the easiest way. This will also prevent you from overlapping the meteors too much, so you only have to watch out for the blades and a meteor from time to time, so there's not that much incoming damage. But make sure to have like a stamina DD, deadly cloak up, maybe Vigor, and as Magicka DD, make sure to use your shields, because it is very easy to die during that phase. 25 boss goes to the middle at 30% and 27%. Again, a 2-hander and a Mega Man will spawn, so you have 4 of them, and most likely some facsimilities will also be there. What we do is we bring all the ads to the middle and we just AoE them down. Now what you can do is you could also kill them separately again, like other guilds do. So you just can bring the 2 two-handers and the 2 Mega Mans to a separate position, kill them, and then drop the boss. It's totally up to you. During the execute it is very important that you have the right positioning. As you can see, everybody will get meteors, so you need to be spread out enough. If you're not spread out enough, you will overlap meteors and die. So it's very important that the healing like covers all people. Don't just drop the healing right in the middle. Maybe have one healer heal a little bit more out on the one side and the other more on the other side. You can't go further than like the line because there is poison in the back that comes closer and closer. And if you step too far backwards, you will die. Now for the tank, if he wants to position the Mega Man, you can activate Magma Armor and run through the poison, but if you don't have it, you will also most likely die. Other than that, there is not really a lot of importance during the execute. If there is still a Mega Man alive, make sure to call out when to block, otherwise you will get stunned and you might die if there is no healing. I also recommend blocking in the last percentages because there is more and more meteors and I think they will increase in damage, and you can actually block that damage to get less like incoming damage, which is really nice. You can see our positioning wasn't perfect, so some of the meteors overlapped and people started dying. So it's very important that you have perfect positioning here. In terms of sets, what do you want to use? I usually recommend having a Magicka Templar damage dealer with you, and he's running Kagrenok. I have the link, like you can check my guide on the website. The set is listed there and what else you should run, like champion points in terms of defensive and all that kind of stuff. Kagrenok is nice because it allows you to rest faster. And there's a lot of things that stun you while you rest, so the set really shines, especially if you're new to the trial. Same for the tanks. The gear kind of depends, but if you're new, I recommend having at least like 50 to 60k health, because your Igneous shield gets bigger the more health you have, so you have like an easier time surviving. Other than that, I will keep uploading videos because maybe we'll find out new tactics and all that kind of stuff, so make sure to go check them out. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.